Hi, I'm Ruth George, and this is the Good Life and Legacy podcast, where we explore answers to the questions: how are you creating a great legacy by living well, planning well, and supporting those that you care about? So it's been a little bit of a switch in gears as opposed to talking to professionals and sharing their wisdom, in talking with these young individuals and looking forward and the insights that they can share with us. So today we have Colden George, and Colden, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So tell us, Colden, what are you doing with your job or career now, and how did you get here?
So as far as I guess I would start with how I got here. I went to school for business finance with the idea of maybe learning the accounting, learning the financials of a company, and then getting out and starting my own business. And kind of taking on that responsibility, that liability and everything for myself, and working my way up that way was always my plan. And so I kind of learned more about the business aspects of, the liability you take on, the employees, the, personal responsibility you have over their lives and everything like that, as well as all the stress and basically always being at work aspects of owning your own business. And it just seemed like it was a lot more work than reward. For me, it seemed like it was something that would consume your life, and it wasn't something that I cared about, enough to just consume my entire life with that. So I would say once I kind of got towards the end of my schooling, going to college at Fredonia, I kind of started looking more into investing and more into living below your means, saving all of your money. I learned something called the FIRE mentality. So it's financially independent, retire early. And then there's also fat FIRE, which is just the same thing. Just your goal is it's fat. So would be a large sum of money. Whereas FIRE, you're just getting by with eating ramen noodles or eating, the bare minimum, what you can get by as your smallest budget that you can live off of. Whereas fat FIRE, you just have more luxuries or more, those personal items that you would like to be able to afford. So I kind of got looking into those kind of, mindsets, and it just kind of seemed like an easier way for me to get to that point of being able to retire and not have to work anymore without have to take on as much risk or as much liability or even as much, put in as much effort or as much time as it is to run your own company or run your own business. So I got really interested in that, kind of looking into investing. And I just came up with the idea that I wanted to track my spending and get it as little as I can, spend as little money as I possibly can now, with also the idea is whatever I spend now, whatever I get like my yearly budget to, that's what I need to retire on in the future as well. Granted, there'll be some added costs like with, house, with like a home or house insurance or health insurance, all these different things if you have a family or anything else that you may have to add on in that time. But that's kind of the way I broke it down, was whatever this number, whatever I can get it down to now, it's helping me, one, save money now, but it's also less money I need to save up in order to retire, in order to live off that investment. So that's the way I kind of looked at it. I just kind of attacked it like that, basically cutting down my spending any chance I get, not really spend money on basically anything. Especially my biggest one is just recurring costs. So anything that's like a subscription or like you go to the supermarket every week and you buy this, like I would like think, how can I cut that out? Can I just eat, like the most basic things that just
wow.
The extra expense, just because I thought they all kind of added up for me. So I just kind of got to that mindset, whereas that's kind of the way I look at what I'm doing now. It's not like I'm trying to find a career and move up the corporate ladder and get, some huge paying job that's going to allow me to live some lifestyle or something. My plan is just kind of be very cognizant with my money, handle every dollar that comes through my accounts appropriately, so that even if I don't have some high paying corporate job or some, well-established career, I will have done the right things with the money that I got from my odd jobs and my other things. That I will have the money to invest properly in those investments, and those, how I move my money, or how I handle my assets and everything will be my career, I would say, I guess. It's the way I kind of look at it. So I wouldn't say I'm a traditional kind of
right.
career job kind of person.
Well, you've been developing your mindset approach to, handling your life and lifestyle and what you think is going to be right for you. So that's really interesting that you've been on your own course of educating yourself and determining what you want. So that's really impressive. So I find that very interesting.
Yeah, it's just kind of something that took my interest, just with the combination of studying computers and finance in school. It was just something, it was kind of like coming up with a program of how to attack the processes of, what you're doing in life and everything, I would say. But as far as job right now, I guess just to kind of touch on that, I'm working at a marina in the summer.
Oh,
And the benefit of that job, one reason why I'm staying at that job, is I view it as something that it's a decent opportunity, in the summer to make some good money, and kind of work with some good people, as well as I have that time off in the winter. Whereas now, as I'm building up more assets, more capital to kind of work with, I'm looking into maybe getting into real estate, looking to buy maybe a home under market value, put some work into it, fix up basic cosmetic things on the home, and then refinance it, rent it out to a family, and move on to the next home. So right now, that's kind of what I'm doing with my job, and for me, it's perfect because it gives me that 5 months off in the winter, which normally would be, a bad thing for people. But I'm looking to kind of use that time to pursue those other avenues or those other aspects or
yeah.
opportunities.
So you're finding what works for you. And that's, again, to be applauded. You're not just doing some track because everybody says this is the track that you should go on. You're going deeper as far as what you think is right for you. So that's really important. And I think it's a way to build your decision-making abilities into the future. You just trust yourself and what you believe in and your instincts and what you really want. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I would say in a way, I kind of trust my instincts or whatever, but it's also kind of, I don't know why, but I don't think it's all as serious as kind of people kind of make it out to me. Obviously, like, you need to have like your base money to pay your bills, and like that's like the baseline you need to get by. But I think everything on top of that is just kind of like you kind of choose what you want to go for. Like, you don't need to have, that set job or that, that big house in the suburbs or whatever. You don't need to, I don't know, to drive the brand new car, to have all this new stuff that people think they need. And I think that's sometimes the issue, is that people get so attached to all the lifestyle that they see people living, and they want to stress themselves out over what they need to do in order to achieve that lifestyle. But if they just kind of like, I don't know, it sounds easy and probably naive coming from me, but it's just like, if you just sit back and look at, what you actually want to accomplish or what you actually need to accomplish to stay in yourself and just be content, I would say.
Right.
Being overly successful is great and all, but it's at the end of the day, like, who's measuring that success? Like, it doesn't actually, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything to me, I don't think. So I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm very young.
No, it's just impressive to hear it at such a young age, because, it's so easy to get wrapped up in, what job you have, what description do you have, how much money you're making, what house did you buy, blah, 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 blah. And you're totally saying, listen, there's something else here, and I need to be content. And whatever that means to me, I'm going to figure it out. But it doesn't mean what everybody else is sort of typically thinking,
Yeah. And it goes back to just how I used to think about, like, just the tribal life, like the evolution of humans throughout time. Like, it used to be like you would just stay at your home, farm a little plot of land with your family, and that was your life. That was like, you lived till you're probably like 45 or 60 if you're lucky, and that was your life. And then we've added on these other things. We've kind of gotten away of just like living, and just, you don't have to do anything every day. You can just sit there and just enjoy your time. Maybe look out the window if you want. You can literally do nothing, and that's
how much I'm learning today. Because there's so many times, let's say, where I truly, have always thought you just really want to be content, whatever that means, but then of course you get wrapped up in things, and, it's, I made a bad financial move there, or I wish I didn't do that. And your talking makes me think back to just, being a little more simpler and being more content with things. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I definitely think it's tough once you get, like, as you move through life, it just gets more complex. Like, as you're a kid, you worry about, like, oh, do I have $5 to buy a candy bar at lunch? And then like, you get high school, you have to worry about, oh, when's this paper due? Did I study for this test that's coming up? College, and it's like, oh, do I have all my stuff? Did I pay my rent? Do I have, am I set up? Did I go to the doctor this year? You have to handle like so many more things. And then once you get out into like the real world, or real world, I guess. Once you move on, you get a home, you have bills, you have to keep track of all these different payments. Do I have enough money this month to make these costs and everything? It's just a lot more things to keep track of. So I could see how it just gets could be or just get caught up into that.
Right. Kind of like stuck in ruts in a way where you just, you're on a wheel.
Yeah, you get into that progression of just like do these tasks to accomplish this, and you kind of just get into that sequence or have time to even realize like, oh wait, this is what I've been doing for 10 years.
And going back to what you were saying earlier, I've always heard it's not what you make, but what you spend. And so there's been times in my life where I've spent very little, just scraping by in the smallest amount for whatever reason. And it is true, you make more and you spend more, and then all of a sudden you're going, what's the point?
Yeah. And it's also like the way I see it is so many people, no matter what job you work at, no matter what your salary may be, most people that have well over $1 million pass through their home in their lifetime through their working career, and then they get to their retirement, and I think their average retirement for someone at 60 right now is like $200,000 what their average retirement is saved up. So I don't know, to me it's just like people it's not really a money making problem, it's a budgeting problem. It's people they have that spending mindset of just, oh, I have this much more money I can spend. They see it in their account and it's like, oh, what else can I do with it besides spend it?
You got a book to write. And so do your brothers, but I think you got to keep working on this, fleshing it out into a book form or who knows what. I think it's just incredibly important.
I could see that maybe years and years. I think we're 20 years away from having enough, or having enough broken it down enough to a detailed idea to have it in a book, I would say, because just there's things that you can't even, or at least I can't even foresee that you don't even take into account yet. And
Right. All right. Well, as far as thinking about this time, do you think it's stressful, rewarding? What are your thoughts?
I would go rewarding before stressful for sure. I'm not really a person that gets very stressed out, kind of like how we touched on. It sounds cliche, but I really just don't think all the stuff kind of matters. I don't know. It sounds simple, or sounds oversimplified, I guess I would say, but I don't know. As long as you have a place to stay and some food, I don't know. There's not much you don't need to go. If you lived your entire life with just being able to afford rent and food, I think you'd have an okay life. I don't think it's bad.
Yeah.
So to me, like, the risk, going back, like what you have to lose isn't that much. Like even if you lose everything, you're still living in the greatest time period in the world. Like you have the internet, you have computers, you could sit at your home and pay very little money for electric and rent and just sit on your computer all day and have an okay life. It's like I don't know, my baseline or what I think is at risk is just not that much, because I just think if I lose everything, I think I would still be happy or still be content. I don't think I derive my success or my happiness from like outwardly, or my decisions, or what the outcomes of them are. Like if I make a bad decision, it's really bad. It's like, oh, this is a bad situation right now. And I guess I haven't been I have never been in like a really, really bad situation to personally know if there is that point where it gets too bad, or if it gets too far.
Right.
So far, it's always just been like, this is an experience. This is what we're going through now.
Wow.
This is just time.
You're changing so much in my mind, because I think I've gotten off track so many different times, and just going back to that idea of being simpler and enjoying things and not freaking out about stuff. I mean, I think I was telling my daughter, life was always bad. Life was always bad. I didn't do this. I wasn't as good at that. It was always that frame of mind, and so your frame of mind is refreshing to me. I love it.
Why I see it that way. It's just kind of the way I see things. I don't know. It could be, I really accompanied it quite a bit of it to how much I dived into the studying computer science and getting into computers and everything, because everything in a computer, it doesn't care about like the outside influencers or anything like that. It's set in stone. It's either 1 or 0. It's either it works or it doesn't. There's no middle ground or anything like that. So it just kind of gave me a very methodical kind of thought process of like thinking things and seeing, if I don't have like an influence over, if it's something that's not something I can control, it just isn't something I really
wow, there's another perspective. You just keep shedding all this interesting information and perspective. Yeah, like a little, computer, and it's focused on what it's got to do. It's not just consumed by, things that can't even really affect it. And so, yeah, why would you put yourself into this turmoil of other stuff happening when, you have your own system that you just need to kind of pay attention to?
Yeah. And it's kind of like things are so complex also, like you're never going to fully understand it or fully be able to break it down or fully be able to understand it all to the point where you can actually control it, to be like, oh, if I do this, this will occur. Because there's so many other things that could happen or externalities that come from that action that are going to impact it and change it. So like to just get so wound up in that is just something that I don't know. I just don't do it. I guess
Wow.
I'm lucky. I don't know.
I'm really, really interested in everything you're saying. Okay, so as far as making confident decisions, just let me know what you think about your thoughts on making confident decisions, whether they be for small decisions, big decisions, and if you have any kind of process that you follow, or just kind of for smaller decisions, go with a whim because it's a smaller decision, or you have that gut feeling about something and you go with that, or learning about something to the point where you feel you can make a good decision, or a combination of everything. What are your thoughts?
I would say kind of like what we've touched on. I start with that baseline of knowing, like, don't get too wrapped up in it. Either way, things are probably going to work out fine. It doesn't really matter. But then when it comes down to actually making a decision, obviously you want to make the best decision that you could make at that time. So I like to try to take in as much, I would say the learning approach. I try to take in as much information about, that topic, or, what could occur with, these decisions, depending on the choice. Like if it's something in life where it's like choosing your path, I feel like that's tougher to find like outward, information on it. You can kind of like research the paths and see like what one sounds better for you, maybe resonates more if it's like a job or career issues or things like that when I'm making decisions about like if I want to pursue this position that's maybe 100% commission based, you're working, it's a sales position, or if it's something where I'd rather just clock in, just take my paycheck, just work, get my money, not have to stress out about it. So those kind of decisions is tougher you can't really outwardly look for like a lot of information on it. You can get like the breakdown of the positions, and then it's just going to have to come down to you kind of weighing what you like. And sometimes it's tough to even know what I would even like. Sometimes you have to talk to people and just be like, I'm thinking I kind of like this, but I don't really know, and just kind of talk through it with them. That's what I like to do with my friends. See what they have to say about it, just because. And even because I'm not going to just take what they say on it and just be like, okay, that's what I'll do. But just to hear a different perspective and see like, oh, you see it that way. I guess I could see how you come from that position, and just to take in that, I would say for those types of decisions. When it comes to like any purchasing or any decision like that, I would say too much research into it, where I'm looking into like product reviews, the details of everything. So any decision I make, it's actually something I make fun of my brother for. He's the type of guy, he'll go out, my brother Ray, I live with him. He'll go out, he'll build something, like if he's looking to do a compost area or something, he'll build it, and then he'll come back in and Google it and be like, oh, I should have done it that way.
Yeah.
And then sometimes he'll take it apart and fix it and do it the right way then.
Yeah.
Before I do something, I'm Googling it for like 3 days straight, like trying to figure out, what is the most effective way, the best way to do it for me or for what these guys are doing. So I am very kind of research based, or I look into things, I would say overly to a large extent. Sometimes it's like mundane things that you don't even need to look into. Like I'm looking into like what toothpaste to use, or like what shampoo's the best, and just find different things like that. And it's like, you don't even need to
Yeah.
do those things. But
That brings up so many good points. So one is some people like to get their hands dirty a little bit before they even kind of think about what they're doing and look it up. It's that different approach, whether Ray with the engineer thing, or I don't, where it stems from.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting when you think some people are kind of like that. I think I'd probably be more like that in general. Like even when it comes to a recipe, I'm like, just throw some things together and then maybe I'll look at the recipe. But then I also like what you said about some decisions require for you a lot of research, and other decisions really require just knowing yourself more. So that's really good way, to think of it. And then knowing yourself more means all different things, from asking people what their thoughts are to just, knowing what you value. So that's a really good approach as far as just decisions in and of themselves.
Yeah, and also I would say for the second part of decisions, the ones where you're looking more into yourself, I would say those can also change for you as well. So it's kind of something that you have to reevaluate, I would say, as time goes on as well, because you make a decision, when you're younger, if you're in an environment at that time where you may think this is better for you, and things go on, change, and you're just staying with that decision because it's something you chose or something you wanted for yourself, and it's like not even something that fits your personality, your ideals really anymore. So it's something that you have to reevaluate on a regular basis.
Well, I made plenty of decisions that ended up sort of falling flat and what you would call to be mistakes. So what do you think about as far as potentially making mistakes, and what would you do moving forward, even just as far as making decisions or learning from mistakes? Because, mistakes crop up here and there, or they crop up all the time. And handling them is always a big part of life.
Yeah, I would say, handling and what you do after the mistake is definitely the biggest part. So, I mean, obviously, everyone knows mistakes, they're guaranteed. You're not avoiding them. It's not something you're going to go through your whole life without making one wrong decision or one mistake. Like, it's whether you even observe it or whether you recognize that it was a mistake or not is another thing. But you're definitely making them. I would argue almost every day you're making some, whether it's a variation of level of mistake too. It's not everything's black and white. It's not like, oh, this is a terrible mistake. It's always like, it might just not be the best course of action you could have taken. So that's kind of the way I think about it to begin with, just to not, I like to get like too negative on the idea of, oh, mistakes, you messed up. It's just, I was making the best decision based on the information I had at the time. And this is just what I thought was right. I'm not. I was wrong, and we're moving on. We're looking at the information we have now. So that's more of the biggest idea. And then I would say, if I'm making mistakes, I'm more of looking at what led me to make that decision. So if it was like, I could see how you could overstep something or miss like some piece of evidence or something like that, that would make you think that way. But if something where it was like, I overlooked this entire thought process of it, or I wasn't even thinking about it in the right way, then it's something that I would have to look at more closely just for the future.
All right. So I've been talking about adulting, and I've just been asking, what's your perspective on the word adulting? What does it mean to you? And then I try and tie that in a little bit with the estate planning stuff that I talk about. So what does adulting kind of mean to you?
To me, honestly, it's kind of like a meme. It's kind of like a joke that people would like post, like just because of my age group, I guess. Just when we were like first starting to actually do, I guess, adult like things, people would just be like adulting, and then they would say like they put a picture of what they were doing. Or I never really have thought about it as like an actual thing, besides people like complaining about having to adult, or like adulting too hard and stuff like that, about having to like actually do stuff is what I'm assuming it means. It's basically like actually having to pay bills and having to, have.
Yeah, I remember the first time I heard it, I was at a restaurant with my family, and the waitress was kind of joking with the kids and saying how, she's got to pay bills and this adulting thing is hard. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I was so out of it. I thought, well, okay, I guess that's an interesting term. So, it's a cutesy kind of term. I think it basically would mean, it's a more serious phase where you have to be responsible for decisions and
Mhm.
try and do the things that will help you and help people around you that, you support, whether it's, your family or your pets or whatever. But, and I don't mean serious in a bad way. It's just that, you can't be, I don't want to say like a kid where you just play all day, and that's okay.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
some point where you have to pay rent, or you have to even think about health insurance, or that kind
Yeah.
of different world that you enter into.
That sums up kind of how I thought about it there from what I've heard from it. Because it's more just people like that, I would say, just starting to have to adult or just becoming an adult. They were just starting. They'd always post that saying, "Oh, adulting so hard," or complaining about those things.
It's funny though, like you can't even have a glass of wine until you're 21, but you can make a will when you're 18, but you can have a child when you're whatever age.
Yeah.
It's funny when you think about things, where there's serious consequences or things that you're not able to do legally. And there's some kind of difference there, in all those different kind of activities. But
Yeah, I don't know. As far as I definitely see that aspect of it too, but it's kind of tough because there's just the physical. They've taken the physical health of alcohol and they make up their ages and stuff. But
right.
It's how you can't even begin to take in what's the health consequences of all these other things that aren't maybe not physically harming you,
Right.
but they are harming you in the long run.
Yeah.
Way.
Yeah.
And then as far as adulting, I don't know, it hasn't really hit me too hard as far as adulting's tough or anything.
Right.
Partially because I'm a little bit I write down everything. So I write down every single expense. Anything I spend money on, I put into an Excel spreadsheet. Every dollar I make, every dollar that comes in, I put into an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh boy.
Every investment I make, I put into an Excel spreadsheet, different ones for each different, investment group. So I kind of have everything very organized and very, in front of me. So I know I'm very on top of, I would just say my finances, I guess I would say I'm on top of. So it kind of helps with that. I'd say with adulting, it's just kind of that sense of anxiety or that sense of stress of having oh, did I take care of this? Did I take care of this? Do I have everything? Is everything actually taken care of? Is kind of that.
Yeah. Well, you're being responsible for even just, everything that comes in and everything that goes out. And so in my opinion, that's just one aspect of adulting, but I just think it's a really interesting topic that we could blab on forever about and, have all different people offer insights into it, because I think we can kind of go through phases where we're making very serious decisions and then we're lightening up and it's not so bad. And, you kind of go through a roller coaster of adulting, if you will. I mean, I had my own law office and then had a child and had no law, I wasn't doing things as I was before. And I think my adulting went from legal work to taking care of a child. And it's a different perspective, Yeah.
And it's not like you've got less, if anything, you probably got more obligations or more responsibilities, but they just changed so much. There's still so many things that you have to keep track of and, take care of, I guess I would say. And I think that's where the adulting.
Yeah.
It's just that idea of you used to just have to, we talked about, do I have enough money to buy a snack at lunch? Or what are my friends doing this weekend? That used to be what you thought of. And now you have to think is my rent done? Is there food on the table? Is my car, is my car inspection up? Did I get my oil changed? All these, there's just so many things that we're not even thinking about right now, but there's so many things that you have to take care of. I can see how it's just a wave that just keeps building. And like you said, it changes. Sometimes it goes down or sometimes it rises up. But I think that's where adulting kind of comes from. It's just that stress of just, these are all the decisions you have to make.
Yeah. I thought of a new title for could be my book or somebody else's book, but it would be My Adulting Roller Coaster.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's I freak out. Scary times. And other times this is kind of fun. and then other times going uphill and it's like, you don't think you're going to make it. So anyhow, another book to write. All right. So as far as estate planning goes, have you heard of a will, a power of attorney, and a healthcare proxy?
So I'm familiar with a will. Just working in life insurance. That's one of the things we talk about in order to kind of sell life insurance. Basically, do you have a will? Who's going to pay for your funeral? Where's your, where your assets going to go? Then you kind of talk about the negatives of going into probate, or the longer probate that you have if you don't have a will. Things like that. How it can be a longer process. And then power of attorney, I believe that was the other one, correct?
Right.
That I believe is like giving someone choices over your decision making, and over like the handling of the will, or the deliberation of it, I believe, correct?
So that would be the document for life where you need some help. The typical example is paying your bills, and somebody could then actually take your checkbook and sign checks as power of attorney, do other things, sign a deed or file tax returns or pay health bills, or, just all sorts of different types of things. And for example, in New York State, the power of attorney has just recently changed as far as the statutory form. And you can, as you always have, but it's a different form, put in a ton of modifications. So you can really try and tailor what would work for you, given your circumstances in the power of attorney. But, without somebody being able to legally do those things for you during your life, you're still living, you just can't, or need help. People are really stuck. And that's when they end up having to get a guardianship proceeding. So, college age students or whatever, you hear parents complaining that I couldn't get any information on, the tuition bill. They told me I had no rights to even inquire. Things like that can kind of creep up in weird ways, let's say, even when you wouldn't even think about it. And then as you get older, there may be more and more reasons why, even in the simplest of cases, you would just want somebody to pay your bills for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the idea.
The other one, I forgot the full name, the healthcare.
The healthcare proxy?
Healthcare proxy. That's the person that, if you're medically, or if you're the person that decides that your healthcare decision maker, if you are resuscitated, or if you're, medical treatment, if you're,
right,
vegetative state or anything like that, they're the ones making your healthcare
right
decision.
Right. You want to name an agent, because the doctors want to know, who am I supposed to speak to at this moment when I can't speak to you because you are incapacitated, or you can't make, clear decisions, or whatever it is. So the more clear that you can be in those times of need, it can be very helpful. And some people do not want the default person. There is a statute in New York where there is a default person who would make those decisions for you. And some people, it's really not the person that you would want. In those cases, it's like, get your ducks in a row here, get the person you want to be making those crucial decisions. So, and then you can have an alternate. You could put in some HIPAA provisions, and you could put in all sorts of things, funeral arrangements, cremation, that kind of thing. So yeah, those are the basics: will, power of attorney, healthcare proxy. I'm impressed that you could just talk so easily about the will and the idea of probate and the things that you learned.
It's just one of the things we had to know for life insurance kind of deal, just because when you're talking to them, it's basically like, who's going to pay for your funeral? How are they going to pay for your funeral? Do you know that if your funeral's, right away, how are they going to get that money if it's in probate, or if it's, not immediately willed to them, or not, outright given that you're going to use this money to pay for the funeral expenses? It's going to be tougher for them to get this money. And then I believe you could also, can't you set up like an acting will, which is like a
living trust?
Yeah, which is
So the trust, that the living trust is another name for just, a trust set up during life, and it can be revocable or irrevocable depending on your goals, or you can have more than one trust. And what you're trying to do is transfer assets into the trust, so those assets then don't have to go through any type of probate proceeding. So for example, if you had real estate that you transferred into a trust, I hate to say it, but the next day that someone has passed, the trustee, the successor trustee, whoever is named in the document to handle matters at that time, can go ahead and do what is needed, get a realtor, sell the home, move ahead and just handle matters to the extent that they're able to, and whatever the trust document does say in it, of course, versus, okay, we've got to compile all these documents, present them to the court, wait for the court to then, review them and say they're sufficient or not sufficient, and then issue letters of administration or letters testamentary, and then move forward from there. And that process can take 4 months easy, So then you're sitting there in limbo waiting for somebody with legal authority to do anything. So it's a big difference as far as transferring assets. And then just going back to the will, for just one example, very recently I had an estate where the person did a will by herself, and it's a disaster, and the fees that are now being incurred because of it, it's just ridiculous. So my recommendation is, just never to do that, because you really want to put yourself in the best position and the people that you're trying to benefit in the best position and not have problems. So that's my 2 cents. But
so I guess quick question, and I don't know if you will, I guess, know the full answer for this. So when you do it through a trust, I'm assuming you still get access to like the stepped up cost basis on the stepped up tax basis for your home and everything like that.
Wow, Colden, you really know a lot. Yes, you do. Unless unless Congress changes that, which they were actually talking about, changing the step up and basis. But yeah, I mean, that is actually one of the big reasons why you don't want to gift property during your lifetime, like an outright full gift. If you were to, let's say, gift real estate or gift stocks or something, where now that person has to take the basis you had, and you're not giving them the opportunity to get that step up later on. And there's all different variations there. That's just one, but it's a big reason why people should set up trusts, because actually you're able to maneuver that step up in basis, unless things change. But I've seen circumstances where people gift and they should not have gifted outright because they've lost the step up in basis. So
yeah, more in taxes for it.
Yeah. Well, you know a lot. Are you ready to come work for me? I just need a few more clients.
So the trust completely, you move past the probate, you skip the probate process completely. So the trust is the ideal way. But yeah, I agree that once you are adulting, I would say you should get those 3 things are important documents to kind of.
Yeah. I always say we're on an estate planning spectrum. In a perfect world, as long as you have capacity, you'd have those 3 documents. But I understand, people will say, I don't need that now. What's the point? This and that. In a perfect world, yes, you have the documents, because there's so many reasons to, even if the percentages are very low, that's the whole point of health insurance and car insurance and hazard insurance. You're not looking for a fire and you're not looking to go into surgery, but you're trying to prevent, disasters. And so that's how I look at it. But then I think it also just helps with that proactive mindset going forward. People get real used to not doing anything about it, and then it only becomes harder, in my opinion, moving forward.
That's a line, I guess it's kind of a sales line, so it's a little cheesy, but one thing we used to say is, you don't wake up one day and go, oh, today's the day I'm going to buy life insurance. You don't wake up and go, today's the day I'm going to get my will. Like, it's not like, oh, you're not going to wake up 40 years down the line, but I'm 55, time to get my will.
Yeah. I always say, like, you need these moments where you're just like, I am not waiting anymore. I'm actually going to, it's just so easy to procrastinate. You just have to have a moment where you go, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm going to do this, and somehow force it to happen in a way, because otherwise, like, would we ever file our taxes? Would we go get our whatever health exams? Sometimes we just wouldn't do it if we really weren't kind of forced to do it, Well, what about bringing joy into your life? What have you or will you commit to doing to just really enjoy life? But, it sounds to me as if you've already, no big hurdles there. You're already really enjoying things and kind of have your thoughts well placed on that.
Yeah, I don't know if the right word is like joy. I feel like I feel more content than joy.
Content,
yeah, I feel happiness, at times, but it's not like I live every day where I'm just like, oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah, but you're not living every day like, ugh, what am I doing? I got to get this figured out. Why can't I figure this out? What did I do yesterday? What did I do a year ago? What, that whole negative.
That's kind of
really
the way
down.
Kind of even. It's just like, it's not, things aren't great and they aren't terrible. They're just, things are things. They're just,
right.
It's just the way things
are.
Right.
You're content. And that's that's something to always look forward to as far as making changes and decisions going forward, just to have that level of content.
Yeah, because I also think when you start chasing happiness, I think it gets like manipulated. It gets construed to a point where it gets changed based on like the things that you see or the things that you are put in front of you. Or once you start chasing some things, like you get, some happiness from this, you may think, oh, I'm going to get more if I continue going down that path, or I continue buying these things, or I go here, I do this. So I try not to get too caught up in like, oh, chasing happiness, like always doing whatever makes you happy. Because I think it's very easy for that to be tricked in your mind to like where you think you're happy, you're getting that momentary happiness, but really it's something that's leaving you zapped or something that's leaving you kind of drained or not actually feeling long.
Right. Like chasing it is the wrong way to think about it.
Yeah. Try to just be good with it. But I would say like I went recently, I took a trip to Colorado. I would say that kind of brought me a good amount of joy, I would say. I don't know. So I would say definitely want to travel more. I like seeing the world, I would say. Not even just to like go to like different cities to like see the bar life or like the city life or anything like that. I like kind of actually seeing like what the world, the actual physical earth kind of looks like in different places. I think it's, I don't know, it's really cool. So that's something I would, as far as like materialistic things, look for happiness would probably be some more travel.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast and being so honest about all of your thoughts. And wow, you gave me so much to think about. And I learned a lot.
I enjoyed it. I love kind of talking through these types of things and kind of having these meta conversations or whatever. You call it, like kind of talking about, how things, the thought process and how things work.
Awesome. Well, I said this to your brothers and I truly do mean it. You're amazing. And thank you so much. It's been quite a pleasure and honor to have you three. And I really have learned and enjoyed myself so much. So thank you so much.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for having us.